Hello! Welcome to the show. Welcome to the Weekly Spin Rack. I'm your host, Chris. This is a live show. We'll have a chat that we'll be talking to. I'm sort of saying "we'll" in a strange way. It's like I'm going to say "we're going to" or "we'll." I stuttered that out, didn't I? You know what? Tell you what, I'm going to take this down. We'll do it all tomorrow night. I'm just kidding. It's going to be a fun show. There were some really interesting comics to talk about this week. I was fascinated with a few of the things they did in this Ultimate Universe 1 year in book. Also, Daniel Warren Johnson might have something personal against me because he had the Decepticons destroy Tacoma, Washington. First page of Transformers. That seems vindictive. But we've got a lot of really fun, cool comic book news to riff on. And before that, we're going to have a returning guest. Folks, it was almost half a year ago that I had on everybody's favorite writer for a wide variety of comics. And he was talking at the time about two of his books, Blood Squad 7 at Image and Johnny Quest at Dynamite. And now he's added another book with another publisher. Folks, we're going to talk to Joe Casey again. Let me welcome him in. Joe, how are you this evening?
Hey, Chris, how are you, man?
I'm doing very well. Pardon me. I almost forgot to put in my little earplug so that I could hear you.
Oh,
and
good.
I forgot to put on my sunglasses. I'm sorry.
That's all right. You still look good.
I'll take it. Let's just end things there. It can't get any better. No, I appreciate it very much. Man, you are really grinding with comics these days.
Yeah.
Talk about them. I've got specific questions about that, but I'd love to lead with an icebreaker, an easy question.
Okay.
Do you remember the first comic book that you bought for yourself? Or one anyway.
Well, that I bought for myself with my own money, or that I got my folks to buy for me?
Either. I'm not trying to make it overly difficult. I just happen to remember the first time I spent my own money on a comic book, and I didn't know if there was any chance you remembered what it could have been.
I think it was probably, back in the day when I first started going to comic shops, in the direct market, and it was in its infancy. There was a store called Walt's Paperback Books that had.
Okay.
It was in Nashville, Tennessee. He had used books, but he also had long boxes of old comics, and he also had wall books, which I'd never seen before.
Huh.
And he had the one I remember buying probably for maybe $5.
Yeah.
Was a giant size Avengers from the 60s. It was Roy Thomas, John Buscema. It was the current Avengers at that time fighting the original Avengers.
Yes, I remember the one you're talking about.
Yeah, and it was the Scarlet Centurion and all this kind of stuff. And I just remember seeing that book on the wall when I would go in there as a kid. And finally, I think that's the one that I bought with my own money. Took it off the wall, took it home.
Did it feel like a good value at the time? Did you feel like money well spent?
It felt like money well spent. I had no concept of, $5 seemed like a lot when I was, 9 years old.
I mean, let's think about that. I mean, we don't need to set the exact time, but these days, a new comic is $5. So $5 20, 30 years ago, maybe that was an investment. That was an investment. Yeah. You should probably sell it and retire now. I think that comics are, that's what I hear, that they're going to be a good retirement income.
I'm sure it's worth tens of dollars now.
Literally dozens of dollars could be cashed in at this point. Who needs CDs or interest in a checking account when you've got that? What's funny is we're going to talk about a new book that you've got. And so I looked back again at your books, and you have written a surprisingly large amount of team books, or at least books with a large cast. I think I'd argue Johnny Quest is still sort of a team book.
Sure.
Is that something that you prefer, or just something that you've like honed your muscles on to balance all those characters?
Well, I mean, I'm a big fan of team books when I was a kid, and it's, really any book that has, even a solo title character, has usually a pretty large supporting cast.
Yes.
So, I mean, you could be writing Spider-Man, but you're also writing Aunt May, Mary Jane, J. Jonah Jameson, the whole crew. So for team books, it's just everybody in the cast is a superhero or, interesting in some way. They're no supporting characters. So that's one of my attraction to the team book dynamic, is that all the characters you're writing seem to have a greater function. And usually with team books, you're getting different characters from different areas of that universe, that shared universe that you're in. It's sort of like genre mashup, which is always fun to write and always keeps things interesting. So I think that's probably my main draw to team books, is that you're writing a lot of different genres in one title.
I could see the appeal. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Another thing that occurs to me, and I want to talk with all of the folks here about your new book and everything, but factoring that in with your other books right now, I'm super curious. What is a typical workday like for Joe Casey? Is there such a thing as a typical workday? Do you have to structure it so that you get everything done when you're doing this many books?
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of pre-planning and making sure that you don't let anything slip. And these days I'm doing still doing a lot of work in animation, so I'll have meetings that I have to work around. So that's kind of, my schedule is dictated by the commitments I have to the shows I'm working on or the projects that are in development, or you have to meet with other people. And around that, I just try to squeeze in all the writing I can.
That's incredible. You must enjoy working on some level if you take on this much.
It's, I mean, to be able to do this for a living is just the joy of my life. I mean, it's one of the greatest accomplishments of my life, is to get to the point where I'm doing this as my job. It's almost, it's still inconceivable 25 years later, but here we are.
Do you find that you have time to take in other stories it doesn't matter what medium, but do you have time to sort of absorb other stories to get influenced, or are you so busy that you can just draw from life? I'm just curious. Or do you actually go what, I need to have some time to watch a movie or read a book?
It sort of comes in waves. I mean, usually when I'm really busy, I'm in the zone, and everything's kind of clicking. And then it's not burnout, but you realize that you need to fuel up again. So I'll take the time to, watch stuff, catch up on shows I've missed, or movies that I've missed. So it happens in ways, and those periods they sort of reignite the inspiration for me.
Okay.
But when I'm really in that zone, I don't need to feed that beast right away. So I've been doing this long enough that I kind of feel when it's coming, when I'm at the end of some period of heavy work, and I go, okay, I'm gonna take some time and watch some things and read some things and recharge the batteries a little bit. And it's worked so far.
Excuse me, I had to mute myself for a second with a cough, but I appreciate you sharing some of this technical stuff that I always am curious about. But let's go ahead and talk about your newest book, Weapon X-Men.
Yeah.
Great title, by the way.
Thank you.
Was that you? Was that a meeting of the minds? Where'd that come from?
That title is all me, I'm proud to say.
It's pretty catchy.
Yeah.
To fans. So this team, you've got all the heavy hitters within X-Men. You've got Wolverine, Deadpool, Cable. How did you get a hold, permission to deal with all of these? Was it a pitch? Was Marvel coming to you and asking for an idea for these characters? What happened?
Well, I pitched this to Marvel about a year and a half ago, and they were coming to the end of the Krakoan period and trying to figure out what the next phase of the X-Men title is going to be. And they were casting around, I think, for ideas, and this is the one that I sent them, and they responded to it. It took a while to get it going because the editorship of the X-Men books changed hands not long after I pitched it.
I see.
And so it had to find its place in the new regime, but
Right.
it eventually did. And I don't know, it was one of those things, the idea, the concept is so commercial.
Yeah.
But it's like undeniable. I mean, to say no to this just would have been unfathomable. Why would Marvel have said no to this? You know, it's like
absolutely. I mean, it gives them material that they can like mine and make figures and movies out of. But the fans love this stuff, and you can't give it to them all. You can't give this stuff to us all the time, or it loses its meaning. But it's a big deal to team up all these characters.
Oh yeah, yeah. These three characters who I sort of jokingly refer to them now as the big three.
Yeah,
because they're all movie stars, basically. And even though they've worked together in different configurations, there was the Cable and Deadpool book about 15, 20 years ago. Of course, Wolverine and Deadpool are been connected over the years. They've never all three worked together in a team format, like a structured team format. And it was, and there's a reason for that, but I thought team books are all about character dynamics and bouncing characters off of each other. And for these three to be in that situation, I thought would be a good, just a good platform for cool stories and just real good character dynamics. I mean, the tagline of the book as I pitched it was, they'll save the world if they don't kill each other first.
Exactly.
So,
I mean, stories are driven by conflict, and these three a lot of times hate each other. They've worked together and know what they can do, but they're very different people.
Yeah. Yeah, so the challenge was there to come up with stories. First of all, the challenge to get them all together.
Yeah.
Then the next challenge is to keep them together. And so, but again, that's, in a way, that's almost every team book, the rationale and then continuing to that conceit as it goes along. So it's been a lot of fun. It's fun to write these characters. Of course, I've written Wolverine before a little bit. I've written Cable before. So they're not unknown to me. Deadpool I've never written before. And that's been a lot of fun.
That's awesome because wow, Deadpool seems like the kind of character that like would really fit a lot of your sensibilities. You're very good using like humor and stuff like that. So that I can't wait to see what you do with all these characters together. Can you give us like a taste of what the idea is, why this team is operating as a team together? Is that a secret, or is that like?
I don't want to give it too much, but they come together. It seems random at the beginning, but as you discover as the series goes on, that there is kind of a method. Cable, being a time traveler, has a wider vision, has some notion that these five characters are meant to work together, are meant to form this team. He can't tell them why at first. That's kind of part of the mystery of the book is what's the overall plan, the macro story. But there is definitely a bigger plot there. But at first, I didn't want it to come across as too heavy-handed. It's a fun kind of popcorn movie style book. So so the first batch of issues is really these five characters, which is the other conceit of the book, is instead of it staying very mutant-centric and very X-world-centric, this team really goes out and deals with the wider Marvel universe.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah, it's sort of they don't have that specific mutant jurisdiction that most of the X-Men books tend to have. This is more like an X book mixed with a traditional Marvel teen book.
Okay. Yeah, that's something we haven't gotten a whole lot of in a while.
Yeah.
They've definitely been sort of segmented out in their own world for quite a bit. So
Yeah.
I'm excited to see what kind of toys you could play with there. That's great.
Yeah, it's been fun, and they have been siloed off on their own for the last 5 or 6 years, it seems like. So,
which was cool, but I'm ready for something new.
Right, exactly. Just the pendulum's going to swing the other way.
Interesting. I'm excited for it. Is it at all difficult to coordinate with all the other sort of X books, or are you sort of given at least a little bit of wiggle room to sort of do your own thing? What's that like?
Yeah, the first batch of issues, we've got the runway we need to kind of establish everything. But down the line, I'd be more than happy to plug into events as they happen, the wider line-wide events or publishing-wide events, because this is that kind of book. If you want to see how they'll react to the bigger events of the Marvel Universe, you want to see how this team and this dynamic will function within the greater shared universe. I mean, that's part of the fun of it.
That does sound fun. I mean, I'm happy that you got this team together. It looks like you've got a great artist with Chris Cross. That looks fun. Yeah. Some great covers. So it seems like Marvel's, giving you the resources you would need to hopefully make this a success. I hope so.
Yeah, let's hope so. I mean, look, it's a strange world, and you can never predict these things. But
I know
we're putting our best foot forward, and I think it's hopefully we'll get a wide swath of readers. Readers who
I hope so.
Yeah, Marvel readers, X-Men readers, just superhero fan readers. It's for everybody.
Joe Casey fans.
The one or two that are out there, absolutely, yeah.
Oh, don't be so humble, sir. I saw a question just now in the chat that was interesting. So you're doing Blood Squad 7, which is basically sort of a take on the idea of Youngblood. Right. And then after you launched that, Liefeld announced that he was going to work on Youngblood again and have it published through Image.
Right.
Is there any chance, since you've worked on Youngblood and stuff before, that those two teams would ever meet, or are they definitely completely separate and in their own worlds in your head?
I mean, to me, they're separate. Because the thing that we're doing in Blood Squad 7 that I can't imagine happening in whatever Rob's going to do is that we're treating the Image universe as it exists in real time. So Blood Squad 7 takes place in the present day, having had 30 plus years of history in the Image Comics universe. And that's a specific approach that if you're trying to keep a property evergreen, you tend to stay away from aging them in real time. So I can't imagine Rob would be doing that with Youngblood when he brings them back. So I still feel like
it's like tonally they wouldn't necessarily jibe at this point.
Yeah.
So I can understand that. I was just curious.
Yeah, but I'm happy for Rob for getting it back and being able to do it, because I think creation should be with their creators. It's
absolutely. Very strange situation with him, sort of not having the rights to a bunch of his own characters. Very strange to me. I mean, I understand how it can happen in this world, but never feels right. What else is coming up with? Blood Squad 7 went on a brief hiatus, but is it January that's coming back?
No, the 5th issue comes out on Wednesday, I think.
Oh, does it really? It comes out this month? I have it on my pull list, so I haven't been keeping track of the solicits.
Well, we had we did the first 4 issues, then we did a strike file issue, which we treated as an annual. Then the first collection came out last month, and now we're resuming the monthly series this week.
That's very cool. I bumped into your artist, Paul Fry, in New York, and not at Comic-Con, just on the streets. Really lovely gentleman. He was so kind.
He's great.
I hope you guys are having a good time together. We're having
a great time. Paul is, what I call a late bloomer. He broke in. He didn't break in like I did in my 20s. He's a seasoned rookie, I like to call him. Which is perfect for this book because he, once we got together on it, he knew exactly what this book was supposed to be and what we were trying to do with it because he had all the same references as a reader that I had, so that I don't know how else I could have done this book without a guy with Paul's comic book knowledge, just from the age that he is, and his enthusiasm for being fairly new on the scene. It's a perfect combination.
That's really cool. Do you end up having different ways that you communicate with artists depending on the project, or do you always use the phone, or do you always use text? Do you like always use email? Like, do you know what I mean? Like, different people work differently, but do you have a system, or does it depend on the specific collaboration?
I mean, it depends on the collaboration. I mean, Paul and I, at first, we would get on, we'd get on Skype and just talk about the general tone of the book and what we're trying to do, and making sure we're on the same page. At this point, it's basically through email, sending him scripts. He sends me layouts. We talk about things, and we're pretty much simpatico on what the book is. So it gets easier as it goes along, but at first there's just that sort of first date kind of period, the honeymoon phase, and then you settle into the marriage, and you start running like clockwork, hopefully, and then it gets fun because then you can really start to play off each other's strengths and what about each other from working together, and Paul, in particular, gets better and better with every issue. That's think.
Cool to hear.
Yeah.
I mean, you guys hit the ground running, but that's extra exciting to hear. So we've got then Blood Squad 7 coming out this week for Weapon X-Men. If that piques the interest of one of these viewers, they can still order it at their comic shop, right? We haven't hit final order cutoff, right?
No. First issue comes out February 19th, I believe.
Perfect.
So we're still in the ordering phase.
That's just what I wanted to confirm. So folks out there, you have your marching orders. Think about that. Cable, Deadpool, Wolverine, and a few others, of course. But like that just sounds like a blast.
Well, I'll tell you, the wild card of the whole thing was Thunderbird, who is really, he's one of the original all new, all different X-Men, and who died in their second mission, and was resurrected as part of the whole Krakoan, resurrecting mutants thing. So here's a character that has not been around for basically the entirety of modern X-Men history. Right. He's like the X-Men's Captain America,
That's fair. Yeah, he's missing a big chunk of he's a man out of time. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And he's not thrilled about it. And he's been a blast to write, and that conflict within him is a big motivator of the first half year of stories, because he didn't have that great an attitude before he died, and now coming back and seeing what all he's missed, he's equally displeased.
Yeah, and then of course Cable's sort of a man out of time too. I mean, he's been around here for a little while, but he's not from this era. So yeah, that's interesting to play with stuff like that, guys that feel like outsiders.
Yeah, it's funny because things that it looks good on paper. These five characters, the Chamber being the fifth one, they look cool together. You get a vibe from them, and then I start writing them, and the chemistry starts to emerge. It starts to make itself known, how they relate to each other, how they interact with each other. Yeah. And so I'm like 5 issues in at this point, and it's really started to click, and it has become what I hoped it would become, which is a bona fide team book where the dynamics are right, the chemistry is right, and it feels like a real thing as opposed to a haphazard, like, let's throw these guys in a blender and see what comes out of it. Everybody's found their place in the character wheel. It's turned out really great.
It sounds like when you're talking about it that you feel like you hear these characters' voices, and that's so important to a writer, that they feel like they're actually talking to them and telling them, this is what I would do in this situation.
Definitely. And they
I
cover
hope you put them through some horrible things.
Yeah, they cover all the bases too. I mean, Cable has the wider view. Deadpool is the meta commentary. He's in a way, he's got 1 foot outside of the page. Yeah. So he says some things that I never thought I'd get away with saying in the context of the Marvel comic that he's in. And Wolverine's kind of the guy who's seen it all. Chambers kind of the guy trying to find his place, because he's been on almost every team book in the mutant universe, and he's still trying to find his place.
Yeah.
And Thunderbird's just pissed off that he missed everything. So they all have their character. Yeah, it's very cool.
Is there anything else we should be keeping our eyes out for from you right now, Joe?
Oh man.
Social media handle?
Oh, you know what? I'm glad you said that. I launched a Substack newsletter a couple months ago.
Oh, okay.
And that's been a lot of fun. It's twice a week, Mondays and Thursdays. It's free. And I've been talking a lot about Weapon X-Men. I've been doing, recently I've been going back to my run on Uncanny X-Men from 20 plus years ago, and kind of re-examining it, showing some behind the scenes stuff, the development of those stories and what was going on at the time. I've never really looked back like this before. So it's been illuminating on a personal level, but I think so far people have gotten a kick out of stuff I've never talked about before, never revealed before.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. I love when, say, a trade paperback has supplementary material in the back, sketches, designs, and commentary about it, like telling you a little bit of the meta narrative, or sometimes movies have a director's commentary or something. So yeah. That's really exciting to hear. I'm going to go sign up for that as soon as I wrap my show up. And Substack seems like it's been a growing tool for folks in the world of comics, especially as algorithm things on the various platforms really disincentivize links or promoting yourself. So I think making your own page where fans can find you is a great idea.
It's kind of interesting. I mean, I've never really been big on social media for myself personally. So this is my first, toe in that water, and it's been okay. I mean, I waited long enough that I know how to do it, to where it doesn't feel like it's taking a piece of my soul to put myself out there like that. It's like doing a magazine article twice a week. Mm-hmm. So it's more journalistic than confessional.
I can understand that, but I also I would bet you anything it builds you a more engaged fan base that's more plugged into what you've got coming out, and you may see that in the coming days if you go to conventions. That would be my suspicion, but we'll see.
I hope so. Yeah, definitely.
So Substack, Joe Casey.
The Joe Casey at Substack.
The Joe Casey.
The Joe Casey at Substack.com. It's easy to find, but yeah, it's been a lot of fun doing that.
Fantastic, Joe. I always appreciate you giving us some of your time and insights into comics. So happy to help promote what you've got coming out. Personally, I was already excited for Weapon X-Men. It just sounds like fun to put all those characters together. Looking forward to it.
Thanks, man. It's gonna be a good time. I hope everybody digs it.
I appreciate your time. Have a great evening.
Thanks, Chris. Take care, man.
Take care. I hope you guys enjoyed that. I sincerely will be signing up to that Substack. Substack has become a great tool for a lot of artists and writers in comics. Brian K. Vaughan, Mike Del Mundo, Jonathan Hickman. They've all had a lot of success using Substack to not just promote things, but to give insight into maybe their process or something like that. I think it could be interesting. Nice to see you. West Coast Avengers back from Japan, and he's uploaded his first video that he recorded in Japan, and he got a guy named Brandon to film him at the comic book, like Original Art Expo. It's got some weird name. It used to be called Brave and the Bold. Now it's got something unwieldy. But oh yeah, Chip Zdarsky Substack. That's a good one. Boy, Chip's funny on that too. Yep, there's another one. Owen is very plugged in. So yeah, look at that. A bunch of people saying like Zdarsky's Substack is the highlight of the site. Okay, so but let's check out Joe Casey's. I love the idea, honestly, of looking back at a comic that's had some breathing room at this point. You know, we're not just talking about what came out 1 month ago or even 6 months ago. We're talking about, at this point, literally decades. That gives you enough perspective to have changed as a person and have some different opinions on some of the stuff you wrote, as well as memories. Steve, you're single-handedly supporting this channel and keeping it going. Thank you very, very much. That's nice. Let's see. Yeah, and next week he's got a similar video at Tokyo Comic Con, so maybe we'll see some folks like Peach Momoko. Anyway, yeah, you know what? I sort of use my, what do you call it, Patreon as a Substack. Every once in a while I post behind-the-scenes thoughts, but having that part-time job really eats into the amount of time I can do extra stuff for the channels. I got to think that through. I still haven't located my Jaws manga. I know I'll come across it someday. I know I will. There's only so many places it can be. Anyway, thank you so much, people, for all the kind words. It's been a tough day. Today is my wife's birthday, and she just woke up feeling really, really sick. So she hasn't really been able to enjoy her day. In fact, like I was about to do the show, and she goes, "Go as long as you want." Like she's like, "I don't feel like doing anything." I was like, "Oh my goodness." I was like, "We'll celebrate your day as soon as you feel good." Oh yeah. I've honestly gotten a lot of positive comments on that episode, and Jim has suggested a great Christmas-themed movie for us to review before the month ends. All right, let's get into the news of the week. And look at that. Still can't quite shake my cough, but I will tell you, folks, there are long stretches now where I can suppress it. Like, honestly, as little as a throat lozenge now will suppress my cough for at least a couple hours. It just won't quite go away. I can't quite shake it, so I'm sorry if I'm coughing tonight, but I do feel a lot better. All right, look at that. Jaws the manga is your white whale. It literally was for a long time, and it sort of is again, but I do know that I have it somewhere. It's really one of two places. I've got some comics stacked up here that I've reviewed, and then I've got a bunch of comics up in my recording room where I record comic tropes, and I'm pretty sure it's up there in some stacks of comics. I'll find it. We've got some good news. Let's talk about that. This will be fun. I sincerely think it will be. Let's start with this. Chris Evans is back. Not talking about Chris Evans' muscular back. No, we're talking about him returning to the MCU. Although, of course, technically, he did in the last Deadpool movie. Spoiler, sort of, for a movie that everybody's seen. But yeah. Chris Evans is back. So this week it was announced Chris Evans will return to the MCU in Avengers Doomsday. But that's all that was specifically confirmed, just to be clear. It's just that Chris Evans will be in Avengers Doomsday. It didn't say Steve Rogers, for instance. It didn't say Johnny Storm. It didn't say anything specific. So that means there's more news. Also returning, Haley Atwell. And look, I love Haley Atwell, to be honest. I think she's incredible. I think that her character, Peggy Carter, is a great addition to Marvel. Pretty minor character in the comics, to be honest. Sharon Carter was the important one. Peggy Carter, not so much. But Haley Atwell made that role interesting because she got that Riz That's what the kids say. And, you know, I look at that and I go, cool. I like seeing her in Doctor Strange and What If. I like it. At the same time, I'm like, it is bonkers to me. It is absolutely bonkers that we have seen Peggy Carter probably a heck of a lot more in the 8 years since the character has died compared to some character like, say, Sam Wilson, who is currently Captain America and is Falcon. Even, I almost got that out, Kamala Khan, Ms. Marvel. These are the new characters that Marvel needs to build on. They're good characters with good actors. And yet, you know, we got like seasons of the Agent Carter show, and that was fine, but they keep bringing these characters back. And I think it undermines a little bit the new characters because you can't have them all. It's a little like, you get it? Like, I'm a little like of two worlds on this. I'm a little of two worlds where I love the character, but I also worry about A, diminishing returns, and B, I want to see some of the new characters that they've introduced and have them built up just like Marvel originally had to do with like Thor and Captain America. So there are rumors that Evans may be playing more than one character in Doomsday because that's a movie that will have multiple timelines and therefore multiple variants. Some of these rumors I've seen are that he could be playing Nomad. That's a character that he played, a role that he played when he gave up being Captain America at one point. He became like just his own hero. He wasn't working for the government. Although I feel like in the MCU, that would just be like, oh, not Captain America? That means he's our evil Captain America. So who knows? He could be potentially, they saying, playing the original Captain America from the original timeline because we know Haley Atwell is back. So maybe they go back in time or something like that to these characters. And he could even be playing Johnny Storm again for all we know. Or all three. I don't know. Yes, time for Marvel to build up Madison. Madison. I think that Englehart was the writer on Captain America for Nomad. It's hard to remember, but I'm pretty sure. Cap Wolf. Oh my God, that's what we need. It does slightly undermine that in movie terms, they gave really solid, definitive endings for Tony Stark and Steve Rogers. And it feels like that would be a good time to put them to bed. I guess I don't mind a sort of smaller cameo, but I don't think that they should have a main role anymore. But that's not the only Captain America news that I have this week, believe it or not. Not even the only Captain America movie news. I have some very different Captain America movie news. The 1990 Captain America, starring J.D. Salinger's son. Yes, Catcher in the Rye author J.D. Salinger had, I want to say his name was Matt, who didn't do a whole lot of roles, but he was Captain America in 1990. And I only mention that because it was so funny. I remember in the Marvel comics of that era, they were like promoting this, we got a Captain America movie coming and it's got Red Skull and he's in his costume and he's the son of J.D. Salinger. And I remember reading that and going like, why would that be a plaudit for an actor to have a famous father who was a writer? Like that doesn't tell me anything about how good he would be in the role. But, was he in Revenge of the Nerds? He must have been one of the jocks. So there is something called the director's cut, which is slightly longer than the original cut, but that is not what we're talking about. I am not talking about the thing that was released around 2011. No, I am not talking about that. I am talking about something much, much different. This is something nobody except the biggest fans of director Albert Pyun knew about. So let me talk about it. Albert Pyun was the director of this 1990 Captain America movie. It basically went direct to video. It's a bad movie. It's hilariously bad. It's not a good movie, okay? Some bad performances. The action is weak. But there's still like it was still kind of accurate to the character, and it felt like there should be something better in it, because Albert Pyun had done some much more stylish films in the past. They were never like exceptional, but they were interesting and fun. Cyborg with Van Damme was pretty good. Alien in LA is kind of cool. He did some cool movies. He did some good stuff with like Full Moon and cheaper studios. You know, he got smaller budgets, but he's still like, he took it seriously. He took the assignment seriously. So it was kind of weird that like this movie didn't look as good, but there's a reason for that apparently. Yeah, Dollman. Dollman is actually like a pretty decent movie, I think. Yeah, it is super unfortunate that this didn't come out while he was still alive. Just to be clear, this director passed away 2 years ago. All right, so writer, podcaster, YouTuber, Justin Declos, and I might be mispronouncing his last name. I haven't heard it said. But he's got Film Trap on YouTube, on Twitter and Twitch and stuff like that. He's Justin Declos. He got a hold of this cut, and he shared it on Twitch this past week. Twitch has like hardly any rules about what you can broadcast. He aired it. So people have seen it and talked about it. And supposedly, it's a lot better. Albert Pyun went through some hard times, folks. But he was like, he fought like against homelessness and stuff towards the end of his life, had health issues. But he and his wife would always carry around these 5 film canisters that had his original cut that he'd never been able to release, but he knew he was proud of his cut, that he knew it was better, and he always dreamed of someday getting it out there into the public. Well, somehow his wife did get it scanned recently, and Justin showed it. And allegedly, it's far superior. Some of the big differences are, instead of being told in chronological order like the original movie, all the World War II stuff is interspersed throughout the film as flashbacks. And they said that there's a lot more emotional resonance. There's a lot more tragedy and sadness to this version of Captain America, because his first mission, he fails. You know, like he goes up against the Red Skull and he loses a fight and just sort of saves America from like this missile, but gets frozen in ice. It's got good supporting cast members. Was it Ronnie Cox and who's the dude for Ned Beatty? It had good supporting cast members. And they say that like even the Red Skull himself is like way more sort of like sad and tragic, but like you feel for him a little bit with the way that this is cut. So there's different scenes that are used. It's different pacing. There's a lot more artsy shots for like, you know, establishing shots. And I don't know, you know, it's not going to overcome some problems. Captain America is going to look like this, you know, it's not going to be a better costume. These ears are like rubber on the mask, right? Like we're not going to overcome that. It's not like the action necessarily becomes like there's new stunts or anything, but it can be edited in a more coherent manner. And supposedly it's much better. So anyway, I just wanted to put that out there and let you know, because, you know, maybe you want to follow Justin on Twitter or Twitch or YouTube, because maybe he'll show it again, or at least like drum up some sort of a campaign that we could get behind to get this released. I think that would be really, really cool to see a different version. Oh man, I bet Alan Moore could write a hell of a Captain America story. Absolutely. Fair enough. You know, maybe it's not far better. I didn't see it, unfortunately, so I can't give my opinion. But the people that saw it all seem to think that it was a big improvement. So apparently there is a way to make, you know, something better. There's definitely ways to make things worse, and maybe the version that got released is the worst version. Anyway, it was certainly interesting. I never expected to hear anything new about this movie or good about this movie. It would also be like, you know, hearing about like the 1989 Punisher movie with Dolph Lundgren. There's a superior cut where he wears the costume. You'd be like, what? Yes, very fake ears. I mean, technically what I'm saying is that it has been leaked online and it just happened on Twitch it was like 2 days ago. So maybe it will show up online at some point. Just putting it out there. Thank you, Gene Z. Moving on. I've got other stuff. Sorry. Film Trap. Justin has a video where he specifically talks about this. So you can always sort of freeze the screen or something, or just look up Film Trap. Right now it's the latest video, okay? Just want you to know. Is Sony ending their Spider-Man universe? Maybe. Maybe is the answer, but let's see. Just days, this is the worst timing ever, but days before Kraven was released, there was a talent agent that gave an interview on The Wrap, which is an industry publication, not a rumor site, just an actual trade publication for Hollywood news. And he said that Sony had no plans of making any more Spider-Man adjacent films after Kraven. Terrible timing for something like that to come out, just before Kraven came out. But nothing really could have helped it. Having seen the movie, folks, I'll tell you, it is a snooze fest. It is boring as hell, and it's dumb, and yeah, it's not good. Rhino does look weird, and yet that's one of probably the better parts of the movie. At the same time, it's so minor because it's so clear that they did reshoots for a final third act fight, and it just doesn't fit with anything else. Yeah, their version of the Rhino, this isn't really a spoiler. He's just a guy that walks around with a backpack all the time, and if he turns off his backpack, injects a chemical in him that keeps him normal. So if he takes off his backpack, that's when he turns into the Rhino. It's so dumb. It's so dumb. So anyway, that was one rumor. But just a couple days later, there was a follow-up report in another industry publication, Variety, that countered that. And they said, Sony is not right now actively making any more Spider-Man adjacent movies, but they're going to be approaching those movies with Marvel characters completely differently. That they never really had a plan to make anything super cohesive, kind of shows. And they're probably not going to bother with villain-specific movies anymore. Their first one was Venom, but Venom has been developed as his own character very well. So there was a lot to draw on. Venom can support his own movie. But Madam Web and Kraven, maybe Morbius could, but even that, I don't know. It was rough. It was rough. Finally, regarding this, there's a rumor account, My Time to Shine Hello. I feel like she's 50-50 in what she reports. Some of it's right, some of it's not. But she reported this week that she heard a rumor from an insider at Sony that they're considering selling Spider-Man's rights back to Disney and Marvel. Personally, I don't think they will. Even though Morbius, Kraven, Madam Web, Venom 2 and 3, none of them did great. They all technically turned a profit. And when you factor in Spider-Man himself and the value there, I just don't see them giving up those rights anytime soon. Maybe. This is a rumor. I don't believe it personally, but I'm reporting it. Right now, though, the one thing that is confirmed is that Sony's basically just putting all of its energy into trying to make Spider-Man 4 good, using Spider-Man in the Avengers movies well, and doing those Spider-Verse animated movies. That's all they're focused on, supposedly. So. The fact that Sony could have used Spider-Man the whole time and chose not to. Yeah, not that I thought that they always could because of how they use him in the animated movies, but some people thought that Sony maybe wasn't allowed to use Spider-Man himself or certain characters. And I can understand where you'd get that impression because it's they go out of the way to avoid saying certain names in Madam Web. Check out Jim and I's review on this channel. It's weird. It's just weird how they go out of the way to not use certain names. But they were probably just doing that to keep the runway clear in case they could ever integrate it with Marvel. That was probably just a decision oh, maybe this will be so good, Marvel will want to use it. No. Yeah, I agree, Black Phoenix. I don't think that they will either. Yeah, the video games. But wait, that's not Sony, is it? Because Sony only has the movie rights. Like, for instance, the animated shows and stuff are still Marvel. Marvel has the right to use Spider-Man in a lot of different ways, just not movies, not theatrically released movies. Yeah, I didn't think so. Anyway, I'll keep going. What huge news this was. Robert Kirkman, Ryan Ottley, they get along very well, folks. They're going back to the Invincible universe. They're going back. All right, so this week, Skybound and Image together announced that Robert Kirkman and Ryan Ottley are returning to the Invincible universe. This is going to be the first new ongoing comic in that universe in the last 7 years. Invincible ended 7 years ago. They're going to focus on Battle Beast. Now, that was a character that Ottley co-created with Kirkman, and he first appeared in issue 19 as a new adversary, and then they didn't use him for a long time. He didn't show up again until issue 55 of Invincible. So this new series is technically a prequel series, and it's going to be set in that time frame. It's going to be like cosmic battles in outer space type stuff during that time period. So this begins in April. They didn't really announce how many issues or anything. I think they're going to feel that out personally. This is interesting. They've got variant covers. Everybody has variant covers these days, but they've got a new version of variant covers. They're going to have a blind bag version where you don't know which variant cover you'll get. It could be any of them, including the most rare ones. I do like blind box and blind bag stuff, so I might pick that up. That seems kind of fun. That seems fun. Yeah, a little bit of Masters of the Universe, a little bit Worf from Star Trek. It's Battle Beast is just a fun character, and I know Ottley likes drawing him because he doodles him all the time, just for fun, for commissions and stuff like that. I think Kirkman liked writing a warrior character, a noble warrior character, and if you look closely at this pose, that's Ryan doing sort of an homage to the pose of Invincible that Cory Walker drew for Invincible issue 1. I think that's a very respectful, nice homage. It's not a literal trace of the pose, but it's the same pose against, like a rock wall. And I love that. I love that touch to honoring its own past. Well, what took them so long, Kirkman's got a million things that he's working on, and Ottley needed a break and needed something new, and he went and did like Spider-Man and Hulk, and just decided that he really likes working with Robert. So once the Marvel exclusive was up, they could go back and do this. Yup, EJ has a variant cover. EJ's been doing a bunch of variant covers for Skybound. EJ's an early friend of Kirkman, worked on Tech Jacket, but did Battle Pope stuff. Yeah, EJ's incredible. EJ's just one of the best out there. So anyway, I think that will be fun. I'm glad that those two are working together again. If you've been missing the Invincible vibe, this is set in that universe. If this does well, who knows? Maybe we get more Guardians of the Globe, or even like some small stories with Mark and Eve. I don't know. It's possible. Another thing at Skybound and Image is their Universal Monsters series. Faith, Erin, Hicks they've got. So, Skybound and Image, they also announced that the next book in their Universal Monsters series is based on the 1932 film starring Boris Karloff, The Mummy. Really good movie. Not always remembered with the same level of fondness as Frankenstein and Dracula. I think a lot of people at this point would kind of remember the Brendan Fraser reboot more. But the first one is really cool. It's got some great mythology, a great villain. It's cool, and it's romantic. So Faith Erin Hicks is going to both write and illustrate, and it's a story that focuses on Helen. She's going to be the modern-day reincarnation of Imhotep's cursed love. I believe that was Anck-su-namun, if I'm remembering right. You wish the Invincible show's animation was better? I'm of two minds. I think that it is pretty darn strong for an ongoing TV show. I think the best example of when the artists have pushed themselves is the Adam Eve one-shot episode. That's some pretty great animation, in my opinion. But I understand. Yeah, it's a really good Universal monster movie. Really good. Tom Cruise looks like he's been through some stuff. Yeah. At a certain point, his looks have to fall off, right? And all of a sudden, he'll look like the Mummy, not that guy that fought the Mummy in the abortive Dark Universe. Dark Universe. Yes, that's by Faith Erin Hicks. She's good. So I have one more note about her because I know not everybody knows her, but I've met Faith. She's incredible. She's got a strong history in comics. These are just some of the ones I'd recommend, although she's got a lot out there. The Nameless City trilogy. I picked that up at like some small convention from her. I think that's cool. She did a Last of Us comic, The Last of Us, that she co-wrote and drew, also co-written, though, with the co-creator of the games, Neil Druckmann, the guy that works on the show, too. She's also done a bunch of Avatar: The Last Airbender graphic novels through Dark Horse, and those have been pretty well received. Oh my God, that was the funniest thing ever. Do you guys know about that? Like, there was a leaked version of the Mummy trailer, the one starring Tom Cruise, and it had no music or anything, or sound effects, but it did have like grunts. So like, there's like a plane crashing, and you just hear Tom Cruise like every once in a while go like, It sounds great. I never watched that movie. It just didn't look good. I never saw it. I don't know who's going to make Wolfman, but you have to imagine it's coming. You have to imagine it's coming. I think that they've done a great job hiring some unique creators to do their spin on these specific versions of the characters. Tynion and Simmons on Dracula. What else? The Frankenstein book by Walsh I've been talking up lately, and I loved their Creature from the Black Lagoon series with artist Matt. I'm so bad at names. He's my friend. Why am I blanking on my friend's name? Matthew. Oh my God, Matt, I'm so sorry. I'm blanking on your name all of a sudden. I'm just terrible at names. I'd have to go into my Facebook and look at my friends list. Forget it. Sorry, folks. It would be nice to see Art Adams do some work on that. It wasn't a leak. It was a mistake by the studio. That was the first official release of the trailer. Was it really? I love Red Letter Media. Yeah, Friends with Boys is a good book by her. Demonology is a good book. Pumpkinheads. She's done tons of stuff. Anyway, I'm totally blanking on Matt's name. He did, oh shoot, I can't remember. I'm going to move on. All right. Boom Studios switched distributors. This was inevitable. So Penguin Random House will now distribute all titles published by Boom Studios starting July 1st. So that's a ways away, but they're going to take over distribution to the bookstore trade from Simon & Schuster and to the direct market from, of course, Diamond. Matthew Roberts, thank you. Oh my God, I feel so bad, Matt. I'm just an idiot. I'm tired. Yes, Matt Roberts, great artist. I've got a bunch of pieces of his original art. I was just blanking. Yeah, so if you don't know, Penguin Random House tried to buy Simon & Schuster, but the Federal Trade Commission blocked it. It was considered it would be too much of a monopoly in the book market. So yeah, anyway, but that just means that instead Penguin Random House is sort of pivoting and buying up some of the smaller things that like either that Simon & Schuster distributed or published, things like that. Who does Diamond have left? First of all, to be clear, they still distribute almost everything to Europe. All the North American stuff to Europe, they still distribute. They still distribute all the sort of merchandise in comics, T-shirts, statues, figures. They do a lot of that. So there's a lot that they still do. In terms of publishers that are exclusive, I mean, they've definitely got Dynamite. I am blanking if they've got anyone else that's big. Does Archie still use them? And technically, Diamond can still sort of like sub-distribute, but that's just if like a comic book store only wanted to order through one place, and then they wouldn't really be getting any discounts is all. Distillery. Okay, Distillery is definitely a good client to have these days. Yeah, I believe so. I believe that this is, as of July 1st, Penguin Random House is taken over. So this was inevitable because this past August, Penguin Random House bought Boom Studios. We knew that this would happen eventually. It was just that this week they announced it. So yeah. Oh, do they have Valiant? I mean, Valiant does still produce some stuff through Alien Books that doesn't look bad. So yeah. I mean, maybe they do, but I don't know. You know, they've already offered some big discounts, and you're sort of like, well, why didn't you offer that before? Who knows? I think eventually they could, but I don't think that they do for comics right now. Penguin Random House now distributes for Marvel, Dark Horse, IDW, and Webtoon. Those are some of the bigger publishers. There's others. Tokyo Pop, I believe that they do. A couple others. I can't remember them all. But, you know, Penguin Random House distributing more comics these days. As long as I'm talking about Diamond, they've had delays lately. They have had delays, so sorry, it's also not good news for them. Chris Powell is the Chief Sales and Service Officer over there. He's been sending emails the last few weeks to comic shops with updates because they've had some delays ever since they closed one of their big warehouses, the one in Plattsburgh, New York. They closed that in early November. Here's part of one of his emails from this week. Disruptions from the consolidation of accounts to Diamond's Olive Branch distribution center continue. Despite the distribution center teams working through the past 2 weekends and additional shifts, that would include the Thanksgiving weekend, by the way. For additional details on the transition, please see the separate email that was sent earlier today, December 10th. Please note, for product with an on-sale date of December 11th, some shipments have been delayed to Thursday or Friday this week. Product with an on-sale date of December 18th, that's this week, is likely to be delayed next week. I still haven't been able to get a copy of the latest issue of Terminator from Dynamite, which I like, but it's it was delayed and none of the stores in Tacoma got it. So it's frustrating, to be honest, like to want a comic and, you know, when it gets delayed to something like Thursday or Friday, even of that week, my comic stores aren't close enough that I can't justify going out to them more than once a week. I go once on Wednesday. And if it's there when it's supposed to be there, I get it. Otherwise, hopefully it's still in stock the following week. But if not, it's very frustrating for retailers, I know. I know for a fact. Does Diamond distribute some of the Image stuff? I don't know. So we shall see what happens. Okay, your shop was using Diamond to get some Marvel books. Got it. Yeah, so they can still distribute for just about anybody. Now, their Olive Branch, Mississippi warehouse is humongous. I've talked to people that like have seen it, and it's massive. I think it's even bigger than the Plattsburgh, New York one that they closed. But, you know, one warehouse versus two, it's going to make some changes. The Penguin got some Golden Globe nominations. Well deserved, in my opinion. It's a pretty damn good show. So, The Penguin is now the first DC series to receive a nomination at the Golden Globe Awards, and it was in the category of Best Television Limited Series, Anthology Series, or Motion Picture Made for Television. Actors Colin Farrell and Kristen Milioti also received nominations for Best Actor and Best Actress, respectively, same category. The Golden Globes, they take place on January 5th, and on a related note to like this whole, continuity, the Batman Part 2 goes into production this April. Yeah, it was a really good show. I agree. I was impressed. It was still comic booky enough. It was definitely a crime story and a tragic one at that, to be honest. But it had some really well-defined characters. Oz and Sophia Falcone were both pretty well-rounded and tragic. Kristen Milioti is underrated. People like she's invisible in some of her roles, and people forget, but like she was hilarious on 30 Rock. I don't know if any of you guys watched that one, but she played like a writer that joined the writing staff of the show. It was a show about a show, if you didn't see 30 Rock. And she like just looked like this cute, bubbly girl that like wore like, Instagram model type stuff and was always flirting with all the other writers and everything. And Liz Lemon, the show's producer, like thought she was a phony and kept coming down on her. And then it was really a good, funny role. She was really funny on that. Yeah, I mean, it was a guest role, but yeah, it was really funny. I didn't see the A to Z. Oh, yeah, Black Mirror. Yeah, she was really good on that. That was their Star Trek episode. That was so cool. Okay, I mean, if you feel it's a waste of your time, then definitely don't use it. Kind of a weird thing to brag about. It's a good show. I think it was definitely worth my time. I was not necessarily sure what to expect, but I liked it. I was like, could Penguin himself be that interesting as a character? Yeah, in this version, he definitely was. Just my opinion. Here's one I'm a little more skeptical about, to be honest. But the DCU announced that they're making a Clayface movie. Just seems like an odd choice at the beginning of a shared universe to be announcing a movie based on a villain. I'm like, really? Like you don't want to develop, I don't know, a Captain Atom or Challengers of the Unknown before you develop a Clayface movie? Okay, I mean, I guess, but let's see. So Warner Brothers announced that writer-director Mike Flanagan will write, they didn't announce the director, he's going to write a movie based on the Batman villain Clayface. Mike Flanagan has written and directed a bunch of Stephen King stuff, if you haven't been keeping up. He's good. He's good. They also gave this an official release date. So that's a level of confidence they have in the project to actually give it a release date. September 11th of 2026. He is a good writer. He is a good writer. So that part, I'm like, cool. He must have had a strong idea to convince them. He must have. That's what you worry about, right? Like, I don't know, but we'll see. We'll see. Some of you know this, but not everybody. There have actually been a bunch of Clayfaces in the comics, to be clear. I want to say as many as 7. But anyway, the most prominent one is usually a failed Hollywood actor, or like failed because he's getting older or something like that, and he gets exposed to chemicals. They allow him to shapeshift. WB also did announce a release date for their CGI animated puppets movie, The Dynamic Duo, and that will be about 2 Robins, Dick Grayson and Jason Todd. Weird idea, but okay. Are there really 8? That could be right. I mean, when I was growing up, there were already like 4, and I know since then they've introduced a bunch of others. It's weird, Basil, usually they sort of mix, to be honest, like in modern continuity, I feel like they remix the Basil Karlo actor version with the Matt Hagen transforming guy. So I say 1, but I'm talking more sort of modern continuity. The thing about Batman's Rogues Gallery is that they are mostly very strong characters. Spider-Man has cool looking villains. I think that Spider-Man has some villains that could support a movie. Venom is definitely an example, although he's become an anti-hero. I think that you probably could make a movie about somebody like Black Cat, Silver Sable, maybe Dr. Octopus. But, somebody like Electro, the Lizard, no. Oh, all right. Well, I respect what Sasha is doing a lot, so I will definitely check that out. I really would love to collaborate with Sasha sometime. That would be fun. That would be a lot of fun. I respect what she does. You could make a movie about Joker. That doesn't necessarily mean you should. And I would argue that, a movie about Harley Quinn is a lot easier than a movie about Joker, personally. I think that Harley is a better character as a solo character, and Joker is a fantastic antagonist, not always that interesting on his own. It's a weird idea, though. This whole thing. This is a weird idea. Oh, I'm way more excited about the idea of a Sergeant Rock movie. Come on, you get somebody like Daniel Craig in that role, like a good actor, and a World War II movie that's sort of isolated from having to do all sorts of weird connections to everything else that's superhero. That sounds like it could be a slam dunk. You could make a great one. Heavy Metal and Metal Hurlant. Let's do a quick update on their crowdfunding campaigns. Both of them have come back with Kickstarter campaigns, and together they've raised well over $1 million at this point. That's interesting, Steve. Yeah, actually, a Mr. Freeze, maybe so, because he's got a tragic backstory. If you expanded that, you do have some inherent conflict within that story, and that could work. Thank you for the super chat. Very, very kind. Oh yeah, Team 7. Interesting idea. All right, going back to these Kickstarters. Metal Hurlant ended this week. They raised $722,000 and change. That's going to include creators like Brian Michael Bendis, Matt Fraction. They've got reprints from original Metal Hurlant founders like Drew Lay, Mobius. Could be a lot of fun. Could be very, very cool. Meanwhile, Heavy Metal has raised $475,000, almost $476,000 today, and they've still got 12 days to go. They've got creators like Old Stories by Frazetta. They've got stuff by Dan Brereton. From Metal Hurlant, they've got Enki Bilal. They've got Faust creators Tim Vigil and Vigil and Quinn. Tim Vigil? I forget first name here. Anyway, Vigil and Quinn. They've both got some weird creators. It's an interesting mix. It's very just interesting that both of them would launch overlapping Kickstarter projects. Thank you. Yes, David Quinn. Right. Tim Vigil, David Quinn. Thank you. I'm terrible at names. Why? Why am I terrible? I just am. As long as I'm talking about campaigns, I'll mention one that Dynamite has going, Thundercats campaign. Specifically what they're doing is it's over on BackerKit, and so it doesn't need to meet a minimum threshold or anything, but it's doing well. Dynamite's offering a collected edition of the Thundercats comic that Marvel published back in the 80s while the show was still going on. I think that they had 24 issues back then. They added this new thing. If you've already supported it, you get it. If you support it now, you get it. If you get the hardcover, which is $100, you also get 2 Virgin variant covers for the modern Thundercats, issues 12 and 13. It's got Mum-Ra and then Lion-O, painted by Mark Spears. Mark Spears definitely making waves. He's definitely got an Alex Ross style of painting, I would say. You know, very similar style of lighting his subjects. It's not the same, but like a similar way to light things. Yep, it was through Star, yes, but it's Marvel. I was just trying to simplify for now. So, they, usually these sort of like Virgin variants go for quite a bit on the secondary market. You could easily argue that those two have the value of $100, which is what it costs to get the book. But you're getting that sort of for free if you back the campaign. And I thought I'd mention that because it's a good value. So if you're a big Thundercats fan, you can now get stuff from like basically 40 years ago. There's the website if you want to screen cap it. You could probably also just type in Thundercats backer kit and find it on any search engine of your choosing. No need to go exclusive with Google. I would definitely look into something like a Terry and the Pirates Kickstarter, but I'm sure that Milton Caniff's work, I bet you anything, it's been reprinted by Fantagraphics. If I had to look into it, I bet you anything. Yeah, I think you're right that right now Mark Spears is probably the most popular artist, kind of like Peach Momoko was right around, I don't know, 22 or so. I mean, I think she still is like one of the absolute most populars. If you're going to Google, why not Bing it? I use Ask Jeeves. I like to use Yahoo. I met Sammy Francis today and had no idea she's a local artist to me. She signed a copy of TMNT #1. Oh, that's so nice. That's great. Oh, wow. You have a leather-bound reprint collection? I don't think I know about that one. What else have we got? We've got other Dynamite news. I just thought I'd mention that they're relaunching Vampirella, like redoing the numbering, starting with #1. So that starts in March. They're going to start with #1. I forget what the legacy numbering would be right now, somewhere close to 700. But yeah, new story arc. So still going to be writer Christopher Priest. They've had artist Ergen Gunduz do a lot of the Vampirella comics in the last several years. They're both going to be on this book, and this starts in January. The storyline is called The Long Night, and it's going to feature Vampirella dealing with postpartum depression. Her son had been kidnapped, and she got him back, but of course she's dealing with a very real thing. And that's putting her in a dark place where there are visions of her potentially causing this post-apocalyptic future. We'll see. Trademarked. The last thing I've got about Diamond is something that I'm just confused about. I don't really have news. These are just pieces like facts. And I'm very confused because I like Terminator so far. But the artists keep changing. So the solicited artists keep changing. Luke Sparrow was announced as the artist originally, and he was solicited for issues 1 and 2. But then issue 2 came out, and it featured a different artist, David O'Sullivan. So then at that point, O'Sullivan was solicited for issues 3 and 4. But apparently issue 4 is going to be by Lorenzo Ray, not O'Sullivan. And Ray is also going to draw issue 6, with in between, issue 5 will be by Joe Mulvey. I would love to know what's going on there. Same writer, at least, and Sal from Comic Pop has his continuing backup Terminator. That's consistent. I just have no idea why the artist keeps changing. Fortunately, in the comics favor, it's starting with a bit of an anthology vibe where it's telling stories set during different time periods, and honestly mostly during specific like wars and conflicts, because coming up they're going to do some Cold War stuff, both like 80s and 60s, and I think that that's an interesting setting. So it isn't like a total like confusing thing. Like when you like start reading a story with new characters and it's got a different artist, it doesn't like hit you too hard. But I'm like, why isn't the artist staying the same? This is like a flagship title. I'm very confused. Like I don't know. If you put like a huge name on Terminator as the artist, I think that thing would sell so bonkers. Well, they've just been doing remixes of covers, like sort of hiding a Terminator skull within it. But that's a boat. That's a submarine. That's a submarine. It's like a cold. Yeah. Doesn't make sense to some of you guys? Oh, okay. I thought it looked cool. That's why I used it. Here we go. It is about to jump off. Godzilla versus Marvel. You guys know I love the original Godzilla in Marvel run. I made an episode about it. I love Godzilla in general. I'm a sucker for the big G. When I go to Japan, I go to the Godzilla store. I go see Godzilla statues. I've got Godzilla shirts and stuff. I like the character a lot. I just do. So what are we doing now? Marvel and Toho are teaming up for a 6-issue crossover. Each one is going to be a one-shot with different Marvel characters set in a different Marvel era. We don't know all the eras yet, but we do know the first one. And look at this. March, okay? I don't know. This sounds so good to me. I'm letting my biases show, but I'm excited. Godzilla versus Fantastic Four is what it's called. It's going to center on the Fantastic Four battling King Ghidorah, who has been imbued with the power cosmic as the new herald for Galactus. Written by Ryan North, art by John Romita Jr. Everything about that sounds so damn good to me. That sounds so damn good. Yes, in fact, DC is also going to be doing more Kong versus Godzilla versus Justice League. So they're going to do that. But this is just going to focus on Godzilla and Godzilla's enemies and the idea of King Ghidorah, who's already ridiculously powerful, getting powered up by Galactus, which makes some sense because King Ghidorah has always been a space-born kaiju, not from Earth. That's cool. I think Ryan North is writing one of the all-time best runs on Fantastic Four right now. And when John Romita Jr. is on point, he is just incredible. I think that this is so cool. I love it. Galactus is tripping on mescaline, I think. What's the most badass herald I can make? Oh, yeah. So, yeah. Oh, is he? Oh, man, I would buy that skin. Yep, Godzilla Monster Piece Theater is still coming. I hope Godzilla goes up against Fin Fang Foom. Or, alternately, I would take a rematch with Red Ronin, Marvel's gigantic mech that was designed to fight Godzilla. Yep, the dragon with like wings and 3 heads and 2 tails. Yeah, maybe somebody knew what was coming, because I think that somebody made this joke last week. Godzilla at 70 is living his best life and everyone wants him. Oh, I'll just mention this too, since Dave is there. I am so jealous. In Dave's video where he goes to that art expo in Tokyo, he got a piece of Godzilla art by one of the Godzilla suit actors. I'm trying to remember which suit actor it was, but God, if I knew you were going to get that, I would have given you any money to get a second one, because that's at least thin enough. You could have put it in your luggage without weighing you down. So Godzilla suit actors. Let me see which one it is. Was it Nakajima? Anyway, I love that idea for this comic. I was just trying to see. Did you know that this was coming, Chemdog, or was it a joke that just became real? Tsutomu Kitagawa. Dave got a piece of Godzilla art by Tsutomu Kitagawa. Oh, yeah. Yeah, he was in Godzilla 2000. That was like Japan's response to America's Godzilla movie. They were like, all right, we're going to come back with a Godzilla movie. Yep. Oh, okay. You were talking about something you knew. I didn't realize that at the time. Anyway, I just thought this sounded fun. There's been a lot of fun news this week. What else have we got? Marvel's got their new sort of Korean team comic. They've got this new Doctor Doom-centered event, right? One World Under Doom. Well, it's going to launch a book featuring their South Korean superhero team, and the book is called Doom's Division. It's where Doctor Doom will sort of take over the team Tiger Division. That's South Korea's superhero team, just like, Canada has Alpha Flight. America sort of has the Avengers, but South Korea has Tiger Division. Russia has a superhero team in Marvel Comics with like Dark Star and Ursa Major and Red Guardian. I forget the name of their team, but anyway. It's going to be a 5-issue tie-in comic book series, and it's written apparently and drawn by Koreans. Yoon-ha Lee is writing, artist Min-kyu Jung, and the team features I can never pronounce this right. Taiguchi, White Fox, Luna Snow. Luna Snow, like they made a big push for, and then they just sort of dropped at some point. But yeah, Luna Snow and Lady Bright, Mr. Enigma, Gunner 2, the General, and they're going to recruit new heroes like Arrow and Wave. Winter Guard, right, that's Russia's team, Winter Guard. That's a good name. China has the Collective Man. They've also had Radioactive Man. Yeah, I don't know. Luna Snow was like getting a big push from Marvel for a minute, and then they just sort of dropped it. It was kind of weird. Here, I'm going to adjust this a little bit because I feel like it's showing a little too much of this light over here. Yeah, they did use Luna Snow in Marvel Rivals, so yeah. Got it, you guys. I haven't played Marvel Rivals, but a bunch of people mentioning that, so I guess some of you are playing Marvel Rivals. Should I check it out? Is it a good game? This is just a more personal news to me. I don't know that it affects anybody on a national or international scale, but New England Comics has closed 2 stores this week, and it just sort of made me sad. This is a nostalgic part of my comic book history. Marvel Rivals is like crack cocaine. Rivals got 11 million players. Oh my God. She's really strong, Luna Snow is. So let me talk about this. New England Comics. If you don't know, it's a chain of comic book stores, technically, in the greater Boston area. At one point when I was like in college, I know that they had 11 stores, 9 in the New England area, and additional 2 in Florida. I think both were in Tampa. I know that sounds weird, but like somehow they expanded there. They also published The Tick. That was like where it came from. They published that. So this week, they announced that they've sold their Malden location to the store manager. They also had announced very recently that they sold the Norwood store to that store manager back on December 1st. So NEC is now 2 stores, Quincy and Brockton, just 2. The Norwood store is now known as Black Hole Comics, so it still exists. The Malden store is now called Zenith Comics. So at least the people in those neighborhoods still have a comic store with the same people, I think, that they've always known. But New England Comics itself as a franchise is obviously a lot smaller than it used to be. Just 2 stores. I've been to so many of them growing up because this is where I grew up, is in Massachusetts. I used to go to Quincy and Plymouth pretty regularly. Brockton, a decent amount, actually. But also I lived in Boston after college, and I would literally walk to their Cambridge store every week. Been to the Norwood and Malden locations, been to their Brookline and Alston stores. It's just really, really sad for me because They may have had ads in the 90s. They were very big at one point, you know? No, neither store is closing. They just sold it to the managers as compared to operating it themselves. What do I think of Bill Burr? He's hilarious. He's one of my favorites. He tells it like it is. He's very good. He's very good. Good actor, too, on Breaking Bad and surprisingly good on The Mandalorian. NEC was the first place I started mail ordering comics from as a kid. Yeah, they used to release these newsletters each month. Sometimes they do bigger issues for like 2 months. And it would like let you do mail order. It would tell you where the stores are with like a map, because this was before the internet. So like a little map would sort of help you know exactly where it was on the inside cover. They'd have better details. They would have little articles. They would have comics featuring like Bongo the Chimp and eventually like the Tick. The Tick actually debuted, I want to say, in issue 17 of the New England Comics newsletter before they actually published it as a comic. So that's a black and white like newsprint thing. Super rare. I don't own one. I would love to, but I've never even seen one. Yeah, their mascots were these apes. So just a great store, still around. They're just smaller than they used to be. Yeah, Bongo, you can sort of see Bongo's family here. Here's his baby sister. Here's his little brother. Bongo is like their main mascot character. I mean, still is technically. I used to have all these newsletters, but I want to say that I literally started with something like issue 18. Like the one after the Tick debuted, something like that. And then at some point I did get rid of them because I didn't think they were worth anything, but they might be now. They might literally be, because they did have comics in them sometimes. There are old ads announcing New England Comics locations in some of the Spider-Man facsimiles released this year. See, at one point, that's pretty big. 11 stores is a big chain. It might be the biggest, have been at one point the biggest chain, but now they're down to 2 stores. Nice stores, a little old-fashioned, but still big, well-lit, good variety of stuff. The cool thing about discovering New England Comics was that was where I discovered a ton of indie stuff and also a lot of imported like manga stuff. So I discovered a lot at New England Comics. They really were formative in Chris's education on comics. Here's just a quick news tidbit. Bob Layton was kicked off of Instagram and Facebook. This is from his website. See this article, this little piece of news here? That's what I'm going to just talk about. You may know him as the inker on Iron Man, sometimes artist, Valiant co-founder. He got banned from Meta for some reason. He told Comic Book Resources, this is part of a quote that he told him, "On November 22nd, as I was doing my usual daily postings, I was summarily and without warning suspended from Facebook and Instagram, with Meta claiming a lack of account integrity." They asked him to like show stuff like his driver's license and passport and stuff, and he did. And then they just closed his account. No explanation. Nobody that he could appeal to or talk to for customer service. He said there's no way to appeal. He does not know. They did not tell him why he was specifically banned. Obviously, they were concerned that somebody else had control of his account. Maybe he shared his login with more than one person. I don't know. Like that could be a risk. I really don't know. He still has his website, and he started a new Instagram account. Let's blame Zuckerberg, because why not? Geez, I didn't even think about something like that. Yeah, for all we know, he did do something to get kicked off, but, no reason to suspect it. Someone probably did hack him, but, if they did, he didn't know it. I don't think... Is Hub Comics in Boston? If they are, then I've been there once, but I might be thinking of a different place. I think I've been to Hub Comics. I'd have to look it up. We're almost done with the news, and then I got some comics to talk about. This is also a quick article, but Fantagraphics is going to publish Stan Lee's knockoff Mad magazine. It was called Snafu. You got to remember, Mad magazine was insanely popular when it debuted. Insanely popular. So this was a satirical magazine published by Atlas, who turned into Marvel, to be clear. It was in the 50s. It only lasted 3 issues. But the thing that it did have going for it, it had artists. John Severin, he ended up doing a lot for Cracked. I loved his art in Cracked. Bill Everett, when he was younger, was great. Submariner, Daredevil, great artist. And Joe Maneely. Joe Maneely was like one of Stan Lee's favorite artists to work with in the 50s at Atlas. And I think that Jack Kirby had a lot more creativity and artistic merit to a degree. But I think that if Joe Maneely had not tragically died young in a subway accident, I think that Stan would have tried to launch the Marvel Universe with Joe Maneely. And I don't know if it would have been as successful as what happened with Jack Kirby, but I think that that's what he would have tried to do. I really do. No, it was not Bob Layton telling you to get Bitcoin. Look, folks, that's Winston Gambro, and he recently sent me his comic. It's called Lights in the Sky. It's a really cool book about like a host of a paranormal radio show looking into the paranormal, which I think is kind of relevant if you consider the fact that these days there's a lot of questions as to what these sort of drone lights are in Jersey and the area. So anyway, if you're fascinated with that like current subject matter, or you liked X-Files and things like that, you might enjoy Winston's book, Lights in the Sky. Just had it here, so might as well give a plug. John Severin did a lot of great stuff. He also did a lot of great Western comics for Marvel. John and his sister Marie were really, really not dad. They were brother and sister. Marie Severin was a great colorist and a great artist. She did a lot of Hulk. She did great drawings of Hulk. Editor, she did it all. Yeah, go ahead. Share a link to your book. If it pops up here, I'll share it. But sometimes links do get blocked from like the YouTube chat. So just let me know. Yeah, I think the Severins are awesome. I've long wanted to do an episode about Marie Severin, but I have talked about her a good amount in some of my episodes. I know I talked about her in my episode about coloring. I've talked about her, I know, in episodes where I've talked about the Hulk. So Marie inked Jeff Purv's Hulk art. So there's like another Hulk plotted in Marie's cap. I think that's the second time I used the word plotted tonight. So don't know where I came up with that. Yes, she did some bonkers Submariner stuff, but that was kind of bringing him back into like, the modern day Marvel like continuity and stuff. She did a lot of great stuff. Not to like dismiss John Severin, who was a great artist. It's just fun to talk about Marie. Last piece of news, I'm just going to real quick recap some of the biggest comic book sales of 2024. Let me look up one quick thing here. Hold on. There we go. All right. So I think that Winston may have been blocked from sharing a link, but since he asked, I can post it and share it. Yeah, if you go there, you can find Winston's comic Lights in the Sky, since I mentioned it. So you can always just pause the video if you want to check out that link, okay? Anyway, and I will be doing another episode here going through my P.O. box because I've already got something like 15 comics that people have sent in. So I got to do another unboxing of indies, do another indie showcase. But real quick, going almost the complete opposite way, let's talk about the biggest sales. G.I. Joe #1 was Image's biggest launch of the year. Advance orders for the first printing, over 225,000 copies. Way to go, G.I. Joe. Yo, Joe! Absolute Number Batman number one did beat that with over 250,000 for first printing. We're not counting the subsequent, which then the numbers get like really confusing. TMNT number one had over 300,000 copies ordered. So that I think was the number one for Western monthly comics, but G.I. Joe just came out. And so, yeah, huge numbers. Really nice to see some healthy numbers for new launches. I like it. That's it for that. So give me a moment, and I'm going to set up my camera so that we can talk about some of the comics that came out this week. I have some big thoughts on them. Just give me a sec to hook everything up, which is, I know, super good YouTubing. Trust me, I know. Just focus that. Almost there. And then maybe I'll even draw tonight. I don't know. Oops. Darn it. Hold on. All right. That should work. So we've got some good books that came out this week and some fun stuff to talk about anyway. Nope. Hold on. I'm doing that wrong. Extra camera. That's what I want. And then I think that people liked this layout the most. So let's move these pens away. Real quick, I'll talk a little about Transformers, mostly just for this. The issue begins with Tacoma, Washington being demolished by the Decepticons. Now, is that because Daniel Warren Johnson is mad at me? Or is he mad at West Coast Avengers, who like literally lives there? No, I don't think so. But I tell you why I think he may have done it. His favorite wrestler, Bryan Danielson, lost at Wrestle Dream, which took place at the Tacoma Dome. So I think that may be a little in-joke as to like why he decided to include that scene. But I don't know. The timing may have been too tight, and maybe that's just a coincidence. I do think that artist Jorge Corona made Tacoma look a little bit more of a city than I would argue it is. But I think from just the right angle, you could arguably line up some of the central business district and see Mount Rainier in the back. So it's not totally crazy. Well, yeah, Dan and Jorge. But anyway, you got to do stuff like this every once in a while to make the villains despicable, right? So they're just like attacking a city. But what's cool is Thundercracker is saying to Soundwave, who's leading this charge, he's like, this is wrong. Soundwave is doing this to draw out the Autobots. He's just attacking just to draw out the Autobots. It's a trap. But I love that like Thundercracker seems to have some humanity to him. He also sees some humans like hiding here, and he says, hurry, run, and then he shoots. And I honestly don't know. I think if you look closely, it looks like they are escaping. It looks like he allowed them to escape. He feels like this is picking on creatures weaker than him. I love that they're setting up a potential turn for Thundercracker. They've been doing this for a while. He didn't like what Starscream did to Skywarp. He didn't like it when Soundwave attacked a U.S. battleship, and he doesn't like it when they're destroying Tacoma. So I think that Thundercracker may switch sides, which could be an interesting little arc within this story. It just means that even though we're playing with big toys and stuff, these characters can have interesting motivations. And I will say the villains each have slightly different motivations, even through their leadership. Because Soundwave has reassumed control of these Decepticons. Megatron's not really in the picture right now if you haven't been reading this. Starscream was sort of ousted as the leader of the Decepticons and beaten up real bad. He is now only half of his body is like intact, and he's been hooked up to a Hiss tank from Destro's Mars Industries. Some of his technicians found Starscream's body, connected it to a Hiss tank so it would be mobile, and like brought him back. But that means Starscream has to control himself with this tiny little joystick to like move around. But he did that rather than like use the resources. He used the resources to repair the Combaticons and help free Astrotrain. So now the Combaticons can form Bruticus. And it just means that there's like this small Decepticon civil war happening behind the scenes among all the sort of, good guys stuff happening. Meanwhile, another like sort of wrinkle to all of this. This little guy, Cliffjumper, has ended up on Cybertron, and he meets up with his fellow Autobots there. I just want to show you one other thing. This is really interesting character work. And the Autobots that are still on their home planet of Cybertron are tremendously disadvantaged in their battle against the Decepticons. They're definitely like guerrilla fighters. So here, he sees his comrade Bluestreak just sneak up and gut seemingly Ramjet. It's really brutal. And Cliffjumper's kind of like, he understands that this is war, but he's just like, Bluestreak, you've changed. And they're like, yeah, we had to change to survive. Like, get with the program. It just means that this book has some really nuanced characters where there are lines certain good guys and bad guys don't want to cross. Cliffjumper's not okay with, just sneaking up and flat out murdering a guy instead of sneaking past him, if that could have been done. Thundercracker's not okay with killing weaker humans. I like it. I don't know all of the Transformers continuity. There's probably an Autobot that has switched sides, but I don't know. It's fun, though. It's fun. It's got battles. It's got cool battles. It's setting up for next issue. I think they tease it in this. Let me see if there's an ad for it. Is there an ad for it? Yeah, there is. Next issue is going to be the Combaticons combined into Bruticus against the Constructicons combined into Devastator. These are both like huge Gestalt characters, and that's just fun to see. We already have big robots, but these are giant robots, robots the size of a building fighting each other. That could be fun. That could be fun. I strongly recommend it. Whoever wins, Tacoma loses. Tacoma has seen better days. This is what Tacoma usually looks like on like a Friday night. But usually by Monday, it's in better shape. But this is what we usually look like on Friday night. Sorry, coughed. So we also got from Marvel, we got Ultimate Universe 1 Year In, which is primarily a story by Dennis Camp about the ultimate version of Nick Fury, who in this works for the villain, the Maker, and his evil council. Let me see. There's got to be okay, so here's a good page. This is Nick Fury reporting to the council. These are the super villains that control different parts of the world. Like we've got Magic, Colossus, and Omega Red that control sort of Eurasia area. We've got Ra and Khonshu that control most of Africa. We've got the Hulk that controls a lot of Southeast Asia and some others. We've got like Sunspot in the comics. This is his dad, Emmanuel da Costa. He controls South America. We've got Captain Britain, who's actually from France in this version. He controls a lot of Europe and now a bunch of North America. And we've got these characters we've only seen briefly in Peach's Ultimate X-Men book. Sunfire Viper and Silver Samurai. We actually haven't seen Silver Samurai at all. Whatever. Nick Fury is a spy, and in this, it's not Shield, it's called Hand, okay? And they surreptitiously, they kill anybody that like mentions any support of heroes. They spy on them, and look, there's like this really nice dad that was cooking like on the grill, and they just shoot him with electricity at the beginning. It's brutal. It's so cruel. But Nick Fury like remembers his past in World War II before the Maker came around. He doesn't really know what happened when he met the Maker. His mind is addled after this point. But he has memories of like being a good person and that he's doing terrible things. So he's plotting something throughout this whole series, right? I'm not going to tell you what happens, but there is a big twist. What was interesting is something that they confirmed here. Okay, the Hulk. The Hulk in Ultimates has always just been called Banner. And I at least kept thinking that it was Bruce Banner's father, David Banner. This issue specifically says the gray monster with the serene face is Bruce Banner, the incredible enlightened Hulk. There's confirmation. This is not David Banner. This is Bruce Banner. Bruce Banner is the villain. Interesting twist. Some of the other characters, in the Ultimate Universe are definitely different, but that was the first time I've seen that they confirmed that that's definitely Bruce Banner, not somebody else. He's arguably the most dangerous villain right now because he not only has the strength of the Hulk, he's got the cunning and intelligence of a scientist, and he's mastered the powers of the Iron Fist. So he can do amazing martial arts too. It's not Eric Bana? What? No, definitely not Brian Banner. Not at all. The Maker must have made some changes to Bruce's past. I don't think he can be redeemed. He's really one of the worst among the villains. I love some of this art, how it references a little bit of the Kirby aesthetic for World War II Howling Commando comics. It references a little bit of the Steranko era of Nick Fury, Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. from the 60s. I like that. That's a nice little homage as Nick remembers some of his past. That's very, it's subtle, it's clever. I get what the artist is going for. It's a really cool issue. It is a one and done story. I recommend this. It also has a super small backup story back here where they're setting up Ultimate Wolverine and that he's like a product of, the Rasputin family. So that's kind of cool. It's pretty damn fun. I got this cover, I guess, by Peach. It has nothing to do with what's going on. It's just Peach Momoko art, but it was available. So I was like, I'll take a Peach Momoko variant. Why not? As long as I'm talking about Peach. Her latest issue is out. And I'm just going to use this opportunity to sort of plug my main channel, Comic Tropes, or my other channel. I do an interview with Peach recently. And she and her husband, Yo, talk about how she does use a different style, essentially, for doing covers versus doing interiors. She specifically talked about how she simplified costumes and character designs so that she could get this out on a monthly basis. And, it is a simpler style, but it's still noticeably Peach. But I kind of admire that she's been able to refine her style and still have good storytelling. Versus she's got much more detail in her covers typically. So that was just interesting to this is the first issue I've read by Peach after that interview, and to just see the decisions she makes. Very expressive characters, very expressive, very easy to tell apart from one another, in my opinion. Really solid storytelling. She also said she'd never studied comics or really read much comics before she got invited to start making them. And that the editors and other writers have sort of helped tell her how you sort of do panel-to-panel storytelling, but she's picked it up very quickly. Very quickly, she's made some great storytelling decisions. I'm fascinated with how fast she's learned how to do this, because she was a painter. She'd do like big images. She'd do a lot of sexy ladies and death and violence and cool stuff like that. And now she's doing, like a book for everyone with panel-to-panel art. And that's an adaptation. Anyway, I'd recommend, if you haven't checked it out, it's a longer interview, but I think that it was interesting hearing what she has to say about that learning process and the adjustments she's had to make comic books versus just paintings. Yeah, stripped down but not bare is a fair description. That's apt. It eliminates a lot of the superfluous stuff, but this doesn't look, because there's like texture and gradients with her watercolors, because she colors this as well too. She's writing, she's penciling, and then she's like watercoloring all of this. She's doing all of that. I think she's come up with like a very workable style here that tells a story in a cool, unique way, but a very readable way. I think she'd be very good on Spider-Man 2. Just going by like some of her sketches, commissions, and like fun stuff like this, I agree. She does do a fun Spider-Man. Very fun. So I would love to see something like that, even if it was just one issue. She is a workhorse. She is a workhorse. It's I was talking to her co-writer, Zach Davison, on this, who does the actual dialoguing and stuff, Zach, and suggests cultural things that can help like make the story make sense to us, since it's mostly aimed at a Western audience. Sometimes there's cultural differences. And I was talking to him, and he was like, it's not just a hard-working attitude or anything. Like, she just has a compulsion to draw. She just needs to draw. It's interesting. This is Uncanny X-Men by Gail Simone and David Marquez. Well, mostly David Marquez. This issue actually has a bunch of like guest artists in the middle. And I just happened, this was just the one that they had available at the comic store I was at. They had a nice variant cover. And the nice thing about like one of the stores that I shop at is they never charge extra for the variant editions. So I really appreciate that. So if there's a cool one, I'll pick it up. I like this take on, yeah, it's reusing Capcom art, but I like it. This is a cool story where two X-Men teams have a very different point of view on how to like rescue their teammates. Cyclops is insisting that he has the more powerful team and that Rogue should back off. And Rogue is like, look, they kidnapped Jubilee and one of these kids that I'm taking care of. I'm sorry, but I'm not going to stand down. Like it's our responsibility, and we're going to save, our team. So that's a decent conflict. I love the art by David Marquez. I think he's a great fit on this book. But then most of it does switch over to this artist named Victor Olazaba, who is not in any way bad, but it's just a little more simplified, or none of like, this is dynamic, this is clear. I have no complaints about it. Sometimes I want a notch of stylization, not too much. So like towards the end, we get David Marquez back for some of the pages, and I think that those just look a little more interesting to me. But I understand also that people have schedules. It's setting up a decent conflict. That said, I guess this is going to be like a crossover across this and the X-Men title that will be like 4 issues. And I think 4 issues of the team fighting is a little more than I want. I'm probably not going to read the other book, but I'll stick with Uncanny X-Men because I like the subplots and I like the characters. Yeah, this issue of Raid on Grey Malkin, that's the storyline. This one is good. I have no complaints, really. It's a good villain, folks. I will say that it's a pretty well-defined villain, too. Dr. Ellis is locking up mutants and is like secured government contracts and stuff. This is Dr. Ellis, and she's pretty awful. She's pretty awful. She treats people like crap, and that's going to bite her eventually, because I don't think the way she treats her underlings is good. She's going to go too far. She's bad. She's a good villain. It's kind of cool to see Juggernaut on an X-Men team. I think that in a world where I just had a lot of positive things to say about all of these books, right? Transformers was fun. Ultimate Universe surprises me. I didn't get into it, but there's a great twist at this. It's a great one-shot. Ultimate X-Men is creative. Uncanny X-Men is good classic subplots of sort of soap opera dynamics with the characters, plus tons of action and adventure. A lot of good things. This was my favorite comic that I picked up this week. And this one did come out a little while ago, but diamond delays meant I didn't get it until recently. Grommets this is issue 6 of a 7-issue story that is written by Rick Remender and his friend Brian Posehn, in which they basically create fictional versions of themselves as kids, as though they became skater friends. They're friends now, but they didn't know each other growing up. The art by Brett Parsons, incredible. Really reminds me of some of the coolest Mad Magazine and EC Comics artists, like Johnny Craig and Jack Davis. Just has that vibe. And this one, it's such a simple story. These kids were having a party. One of the girls invited over her boyfriend who's on the football team, and he brought a bunch of his jock friends, and one of them is just way out of control and literally gets so angry that he brings a gun and he's shooting at Brian and Rick, and they get their asses beat in front of their friends and stuff, and it's really upsetting and moving. And then the cops are like, why would our all-star football team risk stuff just to beat up a bunch of nobodies? That doesn't make sense to us. We don't believe you. What did you do to instigate it? And it's so frustrating, but it just feels so believable how all of this happens. And after all of that, misery that these kids go through from this party, they've been sort of having a small falling out, and they just at least have a reconciliation here. And it's that's so small but so meaningful, because I'll tell you, the dialogue in this feels so good. It's funny sometimes. It's really funny sometimes, but it also feels very real, very real. These kids talking together about the problems that they each have at home that have been sort of distracting them from being good friends to each other. Rick has a father who was an alcoholic, who's in a 12-step program, and he's still making bad decisions for the family. But now the whole family is oh no, he's not drinking, so he's doing the 12-step program. So, we should go along with what he says. And it's well, he's making some bad decisions for the family still. He didn't just magically become a better person because he stopped drinking. And then Brian lives with his mom and his grandpa seems great at first, but what we realize is that he's senile. He's got Alzheimer's. He doesn't remember that his wife is dead and stuff, and he won't really accept it or anything. Brian literally has to he's been he doesn't want to confront his grandfather with this kind of thing, but he's grandma's dead. And it's he sort of takes a moment to sort of acknowledge that, and then he instantly sort of lets himself forget it. And he's oh, she's really let the house go to shit. And it's very sad to see these kids go through such real stuff that any of us could go through. This isn't superhero stuff or operating on any really heightened level. It's got relationship stuff and dating. It's got, skater culture. Oh, these are very much in the vein of a Stephen King bully, but it works. It works very well. It's so frustrating to be old enough to realize that adults are dumb, but too young to have any power over your life. Yeah. Dude, it's great. It's great. It is a real life drama. A little bit of humor sometimes because both of these guys can be very funny, especially when working together, but they get into some real stuff. And I don't know exactly how this overall story of their friendship will end, because right now, Rick's father wants to move the family again. At the beginning of this story, they move to a new town. Rick feels out of place, but he's able to befriend Brian and the local skaters, maybe find a girlfriend that likes him and stuff. It's really, really good. And this artist, Brett Parson, I had not come across him before, but I'm starting to recognize his work. I guess he did a Tank Girl story at one point. So I'm going to have to read some more by Brett Parson. Like I say, it's cartoony, right? But it's also pretty detailed, and all of these characters, you can tell apart, you know? He gives them different body types, he gives them different hairstyles, and he's very consistent. The storytelling's great in this. This guy's really, really good for this particular book. So this was my favorite, actually. This was my favorite comic that I read this week. One of the best issues so far. Very, very. Each of these, like, while it's a continuing narrative, has pretty much told one complete chunk of a story per issue. Grommets trade paperback is due out in March for anyone interested. I talked about it a lot. I don't have as much to say about the last three books I've got here. Dick Tracy, I enjoy because I like crime comics, right? The first 5 issues dealt with a sort of a gang war between Big Boy Caprice and Lips Canlis, I think was his name. It was good, and it introduced, if you've never read Dick Tracy, who is Dick Tracy and what's his background? Who's his partner, Pat Patterson? Who's his love interest, Tess Trueheart? And it treats it very grounded, not silly. This new one introduces something. If you've ever seen the Dick Tracy movie, it introduces some characters from that. We've got the Blank, who's going around brutally murdering gangsters, which you're like, okay, should this be the priority for the police? But like, Dick is like, nah, there's something really off about these killings. They're especially brutal. And I think he realizes the danger that, like, if you just, even though it's bad guys getting bumped off, what if this escalates at some point? He feels that there's something very dangerous there. So the Blank looks good. I love this all white outfit, like just the Blank mask. I think that looks better than in the movie. The villain just sort of like had like a looked more like the Question, but it was just like a flesh-shaped, like almost orb. Oh, I said Pat Patterson. I meant Pat Patton. Right. It's good. Yeah. If you like crime comics, these have good mysteries. Lots of colorful characters because there's so many to mine from Dick Tracy's history. But this actually does follow sort of what the original comics were like by Chester Gould. I made an episode about that on Comic Tropes. Chester Gould's comics looked cartoony at first. They were so violent. He was constantly killing the villain at the end of each arc, and in brutal ways. Like just really brutal. So it is fun. I'm still going to stick with this book. Here's one that finally sort of like, I enjoyed the art and I enjoyed the premise and I enjoyed the first Nightclub. Nightclub 2 has gone like full Mark Millar, I'll say. You never go full Mark Millar. What happened? If you don't know, Nightclub is about a bunch of teenagers that get vampire powers and decide to become superheroes. Well, now in Nightclub 2, some local bullies have basically also become vampires. They tricked them. They became vampires. And this issue is all about them just like killing local criminals to take over their territory. and killing them in really brutal ways, like having monkeys rip them apart, little monkeys rip them apart. That's pretty rough. Having one of the girls just like tease one of the girls like that, like, hey, she's going to kill her father. It's just so mean-spirited. It went too far for me. I don't really care anymore how this one will end. I enjoyed it somewhat because in the first series, it was about like 3 kids becoming superheroes with vampire powers. That was kind of cool. But this one's about bullies, and the bullies are just winning so damn much. I'm sure the good guys will somehow come from behind at the end. But in the meantime, like, lots of horrible things have happened. Lots of horrible things. And while you need to put your heroes through some bad things to have an interesting story, you do. You have to put them through tough things. There's a difference, I think, between having your hero overcome like a huge obstacle or a big tragedy and dwelling on the darkness, like really focusing on the misery that the villains create. I don't know. It's just not for me. I love Millar's premises. I've enjoyed a bunch of his comics here and there, but it is hit and miss for me. In this one, the pendulum swung a little bit too much towards mean-spirited. And sometimes I get that, like, I like horror movies, right? Sometimes a horror movie just feels too mean-spirited for me to be able to enjoy. And one that seems popular right now is Terrifier. I haven't been able yet to finish the first movie. I probably will out of curiosity and to just sort of keep up with the zeitgeist. But it feels like the heroes don't really have a chance to win in some horror movies. Like, there's just no chance. And that just feels mean-spirited. I could be wrong, but I think I'm done with that, unfortunately. Lastly, I did enjoy this. I just don't know that there's much new that I can say. Philip Kennedy Johnson and tag teaming between artists Nick Klein and Danny Earls have created a really cool Hulk run where Hulk is always going up against a monster. Sometimes new monsters, sometimes monsters that already exist within the MCU. In this case, Werewolf by Night comes into play. However, I was really hoping I'd get an excuse to see Hulk and Werewolf by Night fight. It's not quite that kind of a thing. Instead, Werewolf by Night tracks down Hulk's current companion, Charlie, who recently got like monster powers. And she has like an abusive childhood and has looked up to Hulk and his strength as like her idol. And now she has super strength. You know, she's jumping and pounding the ground and showing off that she can like smash stuff. And Hulk's like, very cool. She can also turn into like this big werewolf with wings. So anyway, Werewolf by Night, Jack Russell, haha, his name is a pun, tracks her down. And he's like, you are like summoning bad things. You are new to this. And he specifically has a good line in here. He says, do you know how easy you are to track? Your scent is like a streak of neon green in a black and white world. Okay, cool enough premise. But it's sort of them like facing each other. And before we can really get a fight, Hulk is dealing with some like werewolves that are tracking Charlie down to get her powers. And their god, their werewolf god comes out. So at least next issue, it seems inevitable that we'll get to see Hulk fight a gigantic werewolf god. That will be fun. That's a cool idea for a Hulk book. I just wish that there could have been some sort of excuse in the middle to see Hulk and a werewolf fight. Because, for instance, if Hulk gets, like, scratched, could Hulk get scratched or bit by a werewolf? Would his skin break to something like that? Could Hulk get turned into a werewolf? I want to know these things. I want to know. Hulk was just in the Werewolf by Night Red Band book. Did they fight? That would have been fun. They don't fight, at least in this issue. Maybe they'll scrap a little in next issue, but I have to imagine it's more likely, being that they're both heroes and there's a bigger threat, that they'll somehow team up against this big werewolf. They found a werewolf big enough to give Hulk some trouble. It's fun. It's fun. I just don't have tons to say about it because each issue has been fun. It's consistent. It's good. I think Danny is a great artist on this book. I think Danny's having fun. I think Danny's evolving as a storyteller. There's a couple pages in this where I'm really impressed with, because Danny uses a bunch of different media when he draws. It's not just pencil and ink. He'll use washes and other like tools, like sometimes razors and stuff. There was a background in this that I remember really liking. Oh yeah, it's this one. It's just an establishing panel. It didn't need to be anything too special, but he's foregrounded Hulk. There's an inset panel and then foregrounded Hulk, mostly in shadow, but I like that he sort of draped leaves and stuff across him. And then I love this just shadow of a figure talking to him in the woods. And I love the texture and stuff that the woods have. It just looks a little more organic. I like the scratchiness of the trees and just more the softness here of the brush. I think that's a really great example of how Danny's probably using several different mixed media tools within a panel to show us something just a little bit different. I like it. I like long hair Hulk. I just wish that it was still a little messier. I just wish it was just a little messier. It just looks almost like he combed it in say this panel here. It's a little messy. I just feel like it should be even a little messier. Maybe that's just me. It's a good look, though. It's a good look. So we did an interview, we did news, and we did reviews. Should we do any art or should we call it a night? I don't know. I noodled around a little bit more on this Jason Voorhees piece that I started. I looked at it after I did my first pass on inking, and I said to myself, I don't think you lit this quite right with the shadows. So what can we do to sort of salvage this? We could just have fun playing with different texture and inking techniques is what I told myself. So I think sometimes you can sort of cover up almost or distract from the inconsistent lighting with texture. So I'm cheating a little bit, in my opinion. I think I'm cheating a little bit. I don't hate this or anything. I just think that I probably could have done something better if I'd made stronger choices with where I decided to put the overall light source on all of this. Whatever, live and learn. Live and learn. I'll link a little bit. And let's just do Q&A, questions and answers. Anybody have anything they want to ask me? And then I'm going to take off and get some food eventually and try to take care of my poor wife who's not feeling good on her birthday. Wow. Well, look, I'll take the compliment. Thank you very much for saying something like that. I will take it as intended as a compliment. I would say that I admire Richard Corbin a lot. I had never really considered him an influence, but at the same time, of course, I'm familiar. So sometimes maybe you do things without even realizing that you're doing it. Something to think about, I suppose. I've got just about a month at this point until Chrissy and I take our vacation, and we will be gone for a bit. So that will be a challenge to come up with content on my main channel, but I'm likely to still do some version of a live stream here. I just don't know if I'd be able to sort of show a slideshow with it, but I might still be able to do some sort of a live stream talking about stuff like that. Can I do an episode about the early 2000s graphic novel movie adaptation explosion? Right. Perdition, Road to Perdition, History of Violence, Watchmen, Sin City. Possibly. I mean, there's, of course, a precedent there where it was really as the 90s began, Batman had been so popular that they were trying a lot of stuff connected to, comic strips and pulp magazine heroes too, because you got all of a sudden Dick Tracy, The Shadow, The Phantom. You were getting stuff beyond just Batman, Superman, Spider-Man. You're getting a lot of experimentation there to see like what audiences wanted. But that could be interesting, Dave. That could be interesting. There's a bunch of episodes I'd like to make. Oh, tell you what, let me acknowledge this because this is important. Thank you very much for the super chat. That's just incredibly generous. Off topic, I started therapy over the summer, and now I am doing much better mentally. And if anyone feels like they need help, don't hesitate to reach out to a mental health counselor. Never too late. Well, thank you for the support, and that's a really positive comment overall. It's probably something I should do myself. Maybe it would at least help me with organization. I'm glad, though, for you. That's nice. That is nice to hear, Steve. You seem like a genuinely good person. You always have positive comments or interesting questions. So, you know, I that's the vibe I get, and it's nice to hear that you're doing well. This is an interesting thing. What will the next Comic Tropes Christmas animation special be? Next year's? I love those things. I wanted to do one this year, but this episode that I'm working on about Walking Dead just took longer than a week. So that'll come out this weekend, and then I'm out of time to do a Christmas special. If I had time to fit one in, I was probably going to do the Alf Christmas special, which is just an exercise in misery. Sorry, I'm checking out early, Chris. I'm not feeling well myself. Great stream and interview as usual. Hope everyone has a great week. Dr. Schubel, my condolences that you're not feeling well. That sucks. I thank you for the super chat. Very, very kind of you. Very, very kind of you. Yeah, I wish the Phantom had done better. It had some cool stuff to it. Yep, mental is just as important as physical. Sometimes physical fuels the mental, so they're related. 2025 is going to be a kick-ass year, new MCU and comics. There's a lot of promising stuff already on the horizon. That would be really nice. I would have liked to have had time to fit it all in. I just don't. I don't. What beats a new car smell? Smell of me, my musk. If you get close and you can just smell me, oh, it makes you feel so good. I don't know. A new car smells good. Alf is life. Alf is something. Alf is something. Because Alf is the stuff that dreams are made of. He's the slow and steady fight. It's the stuff that Alf is made of. How about that? The stuff that Alf is made of. By me. Based on the musical stylings of Carly Simon. Is that what people want? Carly Simon parody songs by me about Alf? I think it might be. Because it's the stuff that Alf is made of. He's from Melmac. He eats cats. His real name's Gordon Shumway. I agree. The Alf cartoon was probably funnier than the live action show. Oh, cool. Once you read No One, I recommend listening to those podcasts. They're very additive. They're very cool. The true crime podcasts are really good. John, thank you. Just want to wish all troopers a happy holidays. And thanks to me, Chris, for your effort, talent, and attitude in building this community. I love this community. Alf was so good for its time. Hey, since Bronze Age Nerd is here, folks, if you want to listen to some more comic book news and stuff like that, he starts his live stream tonight in about 30 minutes. So I'm probably going to wrap up soon, but just it's a good show. It's kind of fun. It's chill. I recommend it. Alf is God. Praise Bob. Hey, kill me! Willie! Where's Lucky? Not to eat. I've learned to love cats. Oh, Alf, you're always giving me so much stress. Dude, you want to... Alf was like a popular, briefly like show, right? It was. The behind the scenes of that show is absolute misery. The actors generally did not like being on that show. First of all, in order to have the puppet be there, it meant that there were like sort of trap doors all throughout the set, and they had to make sure that they didn't fall down while like doing the show by stepping into a hole. And the main actor, the dad, Max something, dude, that guy was funny, but his background is dark. He was always into drugs and stuff. Actually, Paul Fusco, the creator of Alf and the voice and stuff, he was like on cocaine. There's a movie about his life starring Ben Stiller with like sort of a knockoff version of Alf because they didn't have the rights to that. Oh, it's fascinating. Yes, I do. I go crazy in your chat. No plans to go to either because it's very hard for me to get enough vacation time to do more than like sort of one trip a year because I've got a day job. If I was just doing comics on YouTube, maybe it would make sense to travel to other conventions because that's content and you're keeping up, but it's very hard for me to fit it in. Remember when the aliens left Alf on Earth in the series finale? Yeah, it ends... Just to be clear, Alf ends on a downer because it dropped in the ratings precipitously all of a sudden. It was doing well, and then all of a sudden it wasn't. They thought they were going to be picked up, so they ended the show on a cliffhanger with like Alf on the roof of the Tanner family, about to get like rescued by some sort of aliens, and then the alien task force, this government task force assigned to capture aliens, finds and surrounds him. And that's how it ended. Years later, they did a TV movie to sort of wrap it up, but all of the actors from the original show were gone, so it just feels weird and disjointed and not real. Max Wright. Max Wright has a wild history. Permanent Midnight. Yeah, that's the one starring Ben Stiller about Paul Fusco's life. Whoa! Heroes Con Fund and Chrissy Soup Fund and more Turok for everyone. Turok was legit a cool character, and I think the coolest thing about, Valiant buying those gold key characters and using them in the 90s was that when Acclaim bought Valiant, they made a pretty damn good Turok first-person shooter on the N64. Wasn't it Willie Tanner? I thought that that the family name was Tanner and Alf too. Maybe I've got that wrong. Thank you, by the way, Dave, for that super chat. Very, very kind of you. They were both named Tanner? Okay, I didn't watch Full House, so I thought I had that right. No, they didn't. Did they really? Well, Comic Tim would probably tell us all that Turok is now the hot book of the week. I think I'm up to date on Skeleton Crew too. I enjoy it. I agree. Because it's the stuff that Alfs are made of. It's the slow and steady fight. It's the stuff that Alf is made of. Inking is fun for me. Inking is relaxing. It's too bad that it's like nearly a lost art as its own career path in comics, because maybe I could have been an inker. Not that they get that much respect. My sympathies to like inkers out there. They get some. There's been some amazing inkers. I'll make it an episode about inking at some point. It's just that a lot of artists now ink their own work or just digitally darken stuff, and it can be touched up with coloring and stuff. So, yeah, you don't get to see quite as much inking as you used to. Like, as a dedicated career path, I mean. I wonder if there are any prominent inkers that work on multiple books these days. I'm trying to think. Huh. I'm drawing a small blank right now. I'd have to give that some serious thought. Comic Tim is always about that Turok. It was a joke, and it's not even my joke, just to be clear. I've met Comic Tom. He's funny. Sometimes Dave from West Coast Avengers has a character he plays called Comic Tim. I was making a joke for an audience of one. Is it the Alf Christmas special you were going to highlight? Yes, that was what I was going to highlight. Excuse me. I totally agree. Palmer and Austin were both some of my favorites. I also really admire Klaus Janson and Scott Williams. Those are like some inkers that I really like, but Palmer really, oh man, you get Tom Palmer on almost anybody. I think he inked a lot of Gene Colan stuff that I loved. Oh, so good. So good. You know, I just am not the right age. I did not grow up watching things like Full House or Family Matters or anything. I mean, I'm aware of it culturally, but definitely not a sitcom that I really watched. So I don't have any huge opinions on the character, just sort of more like a general awareness. Some things are so big that you can't get away from them, like culturally, and that's kind of impressive when an actor can make that much of an impact. But yeah, I wouldn't call myself an expert or someone with enough knowledge to talk about it. I love inkers. Yep, they do add a lot of depth. Todd became an inker for nearly 20 years. Yep, that's true. He did ink Spawn a lot. That's true. I don't think of him first as an inker. I think of him as an artist. I think of him as a writer. I think of him as a businessman. But you're right. He did ink Spawn for a long time. No. We do not call them that. It was sort of for its time. Some of it holds up, I guess. So I'd have to. I haven't rewatched most of it, but the Christmas special was pretty bad, in my opinion. Other contenders for like what I may have covered for Christmas this year for like a sort of just a Christmas special. Obviously, He-Man is the He-Man She-Ra Christmas special is absolutely bonkers, but it's not necessarily any more bonkers than any other He-Man episode. It's just that Skeletor learns the true meaning of Christmas. I don't like this feeling. I feel like being nice. Oh, I don't like this at all. That's my terrible Skeletor impression. And I also considered the Saved by the Bell 2-part Christmas special, which is a lot of it is just the gang gets jobs at the mall for the holidays, but is primarily about Zach trying to get into the pants of a homeless girl who, at the end of the 2-parter, they come to live with Zach. She comes to live with Zach and his family to get back on their feet. And I'm like, I don't know if that's such a good idea, putting her in the house with Zach. Oh, Zach. I don't like Christmas. It makes me feel like being nice. You know, Star Wars Christmas special is definitely a unique kind of terrible, but it sure has been covered a lot. So I don't know if like there's anything new I'd have to say that hasn't been said before. It's the Star Wars Christmas special. You know, it's like it's worth seeing once if you're a big Star Wars fan, as the novelty, to like see a coked up Carrie Fisher, allegedly, but you can't badmouth the dead, so, or you can't like slander the dead legally. Singing an official song to the Star Wars music. Mark Hamill, like, I don't know if he had just had his plastic surgery or if he just put on way too much makeup. He looks like David Bowie in the thing. Seeing Harrison Ford sleepwalk through the role of Han Solo because he was just seemingly embarrassed to be there. But they got all the actors to do the Christmas special. And yet, as bad as it is, it makes the token sin of being a lot of boring bad as compared to just goofy bad. There's a bunch of goofy bad because it's long as hell, but there's a lot of boring stuff in it. A lot of boring stuff. Yes, I saw that. They watch a Hollow show that's very much based on the Christmas special. It's a pretty tough watch is all I'm going to say. Like, don't go in going like, oh, cool, like bad Star Wars. This could be fun. Little bits of it are, and some of it is boring as hell. There is a Riff Tracks version. That might be entertaining. Have you seen the Star Wars, The Clone Wars, and The Mandalorian? I've definitely seen The Mandalorian. There's my wedding ring. Can that focus? Can you see that? That's Mando. That's my wedding ring. Those are black diamonds in the shape of Mando's visor. I've seen a few episodes of the Clone Wars, and I've got friends that highly recommend it. It does seem cool and interesting, but I just don't have tons of extra time to watch stuff. What if somebody like could point me to like these are the episodes that like are just the lore episodes that you have to catch? Maybe I could sort of like do a speed run of all the seasons of just the stuff that's like not necessarily filler. Like that I would probably try to make time for that. Those are blood diamonds that Leonardo DiCaprio stole. Blood diamonds are the bad thing. Black diamonds are fine. Oh, okay. You caught your mistake. That makes my joke a little less funny. There's a great Stuff You Should Know podcast about the history of it. Oh, really? Okay. Blood Diamond was my favorite American gladiator. There was one American gladiator that had the biggest chompers in the world. I'm trying to remember who he was, what his name was. I can't remember his name, but he did play the big centaur villain in the second Mortal Kombat movie, Motaro. I just remembered the name. Dude, I'll just say something. Art Carney, actually, I don't find that watchable in this special, but B. Arthur, I kind of find like pretty charming in the Christmas special as the cantina owner. And there's a lot of song and dance numbers in the Christmas special, the Star Wars Christmas special. The only one I kind of find listenable is Bay Arthur's, closing time song. It's dull. That's my best summary. It is dull. It is so bad. Oh, that was it. Malibu. He must have fixed so many pipes. Okay. Oh, why are you guys reminding me of the Harvey Korman parts of this? Wasn't he also like an alien in the cantina that hilariously like takes off his hat and pours his drink into a hole in his head? That's how he drinks, not through his mouth, through his head. That's the level of sophisticated humor you get in that. I didn't talk about the Superman poster. There's sort of like a motion poster with a little bit of the remix of the Superman theme that John Williams did, that James Gunn released. And I guess Thursday we get the first trailer for Superman. So maybe next week I'll talk about it. My theater, I was in a small theater, but it was actually full, but nobody seemed into it. Nobody was into that movie, yeah. We didn't have a good time. I love the Muppets. Not everything Muppets, but in general, I think the Muppets are awesome. I think they look cool. I think they've got great actors and like both voice actors and puppeteers. And I think a bunch of their movies and TV shows are hilarious. I think the Muppets are awesome. Yeah. Give me a Muppet Star Wars movie. I'd watch that. You ever up for some Marvel versus Capcom? I'm terrible at fighting games. If I'm at a friend's house or something and they want to play, I'll like pick up the controller, but I can never memorize combos, or even when I've memorized one or two, I can never pull them off. Just terrible. The original Muppet Show is just so strong, so good. And it's because it's sort of like a sketch comedy format. So you never really dwell with anything so long that you get bored with it. Even if it's like a slight miss, it's going to be over and moving on to something else pretty soon. So it was cool. Oh, there we go. Maurice Severin was the artist on the Muppet Babies comic. Star Comics through Marvel. Dark Crystal is one that I've tried to watch and I just can't get too into it. So I've never finished that movie. And I know that there was a Netflix TV show, but I just hadn't even finished the movie. So it just, like the puppetry I found impressive, but the story I just wasn't getting into. I don't know. Not everything works for everybody. If they were on the Muppet Show, they had to be famous. Dude, I remember being so psyched when Mark Hamill was on the Muppet Show. I just thought that was the coolest. That's fun to talk about that. No, I don't think I ever saw the Muppets Wizard of Oz. I haven't seen everything Muppets related. Quentin Tarantino, good Lord, no. That is bizarre. I did like the one Muppet like movie that Jason Segel made. I thought that one was really funny. But then they followed that up with a Ricky Gervais one, and that one I was like, this is kind of bad. Like, this might be my least favorite Muppets anything. Happy holidays, Trooper. Happy birthday to Chrissy. Very kind of you. In fact, I should take off and go check on my wife, because it has been 2 hours, 40 minutes. So I should really check on her. It is her birthday and she's a little sick. So she was kind enough to just say, like, do your thing. But I want to check on her. I want to. So thank you, everybody, for watching tonight. Remember to hit like and subscribe if you can. And keep your eyes open on comic tropes. I've got a big episode about The Walking Dead coming, so I'm really excited to share that with all of you. And until I see you next time, you know your marching orders. Keep reading comics. Whoop, double salute. All for you. Bye.